Hello, and welcome to Stories Across Borders. Here we discuss stories told across a range of different mediums, books, movies, games, you name it. The only rule is that we can only discuss things in terms of the writing. Anything like acting, art, mechanics, etc. is out unless it relates directly to how the story is being told. I'm Daniel Radford, author, hopeless romantic, and also your host. And today I'm once more joined by my frequent co-host, John Kernan, as we continue our cycle on romance.
I can't call myself that anymore because I'm married, but I am still hopelessly romantic.
I'm also lying when I describe myself as such. But as I am with 99% of the introduction things I describe myself as. This time we're going to be discussing The Four of Them, a webtoon comic created by my Hirschfeld. I believe it's mine or May.
I think so.
Which, if you ask me, should basically be required reading for all young people who are experimenting with and exploring identity and relationships, and quite frankly, probably a lot of adults who never properly got to do that in a healthy manner.
Yeah, not only is it just generally good, but I think it might be my favorite, like, believable, realistic portrayal of this stuff for like young teenagers. Everything else I've seen that's anywhere near that area is usually about older kids because all the spice and intrigue is in the proper high school years, but also like the
Yeah, I think they're like 15-ish, 14, 15.
I think so, yeah. They have to be otherwise Monica would be much more problematic. But I don't know, it's just everything else is so much more about almost everything else I should say that you see in that era is so much more about the spice, the the heat or the crazy nonsense teenage drama. Whereas
That is overblown as all shit, yeah.
this one is so much just about the people, and it has a story to tell, and it's fun and cute, and it has time for some drama, but it literally only ever happens in service to the story and the exact struggles the characters are going through.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the details on this one. It's a really interesting thing to break down, like and analyze. Before I do that, though, did as a side note, by the way, I actually just discovered that there is a short live action adaptation by something called Brat TV, which I've never heard of. Um,
What?
yeah, it seems to be like 3 episodes long, and I am judging preemptively here, but I feel like it probably lacks a lot of the subtlety and nuance of the webtoon in favor of a more standard teen drama format, but it's still cool that it exists.
That is cool.
Like anytime I see a webtoon become adapted in some way, I think that's hype as all hell because most things on that site are originally like penned by one or two creators without any backing from any like big companies or whatever, and then they get picked up and serialized out of canvas by Webtoon. So it's always really cool to see one succeeding. That aside, let's get into the discussion. To start us off, the four of them is a surprising, I know, given the cycle we're in, largely romantic drama, following primarily, well, four teenagers growing up in Argentina. Johnny, Gabby, who is actually named Gabriel, Marielle, and Martina, and exploring sort of matters of love, identity, and friendship. It also introduces us to a secondary cast of characters who get a fair amount of screen time as well. Michaela, who is Johnny's sister, and could very easily be mistaken as part of the main group. Siblings Josefina and Marcos, or Marco. I think it's Marcos, but I'm a little iffy on pronunciation for some of the names given the setting. Gabby's older brother Alex appears sometimes. There's a handful of others: Ariana, Monica, Leah, etc., etc. Given the title, it's a surprisingly expansive cast by the end.
Yeah, and honestly, for the first season, Micah really does feel like one of the mains. It only becomes more clear that she's not one of the four of them in season two. And then it just becomes that much more cemented. Partially because we realize all four of the four of them are in the same class. So nobody
Yeah.
outside of the class is actually one of them.
Later on, you've almost got like a mini four, like a secondary set of four, because you've got Michaela, obviously, then you've got Josephina and Marcos, and you've got Leah as well, who comes into it. I can't remember her full name. I just remember her as Leah, Lia, who is Martina's sister. I don't. Most of them are also in the same class, I think.
I like how they intentionally go way longer than is reasonable without mentioning Leah as Martina's sister, including having Leah and Martina not mention it to people multiple times so that I'm sitting there going like, how come every single time I see Leah, her and Martina are together, sometimes even at Martina's house, but then and it, not only does she not want her to interfere, but she every time somebody brings them up, she's like, we're not friends. I'm like, but what do you mean you're not friends? And then they finally do the reveal, and I'm like, oh,
Like, I
I
actually
see.
that makes a lot of sense now that I think about it.
She wasn't even necessarily saying they don't get along or she hates her. That's just literally friendship is not their relationship.
Yeah, we get a lot more into their relationship in the in season four, but so yeah, we've mentioned a lot of characters at this point. I suppose we can do a brief overview of the main four and maybe some of the side characters real quick before we sort of examine the structure of the story and start really getting into the weeds with everything. And I mean, you obviously feel free to
Hmm.
cut in whenever you want. We start off with Johnny, who is arguably the most main character of the main four.
Yeah, and he's definitely the first, although I'm beginning to think thinking about it now, this may sound inflammatory to some people, but I think he's the first just because he stretches and hits the widest, most common and simple demographic for romances, and that is straight dude. Just
Yeah.
the regular normal straight dude, and it almost feels like he's there to ease people who aren't more into this stuff in first before we start hitting, because literally everybody else's struggles are not more nuanced but definitely more unique or out there than his.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely true that he is, of the main four, the only one who is anything resembling heteronormative. Yeah, so Johnny is, his whole deal is he's enamored with the idea of love and romance, but he has a lot of growing up to do before he can actually have a healthy relationship. But he wants that for himself. You know, he's in that age bracket where he starts seeing this and goes, I want that in my life. That's supposed to be a part of my life. He has a minor confidence issue as well, despite being, you know, a very outgoing person, generally speaking, and considered like he's considered good looking by basically all of his peers. Doesn't matter. And that is largely because his younger sister tends to excel at everything he tries at a higher level than him,
Except for socializing, because boy,
except for socializing.
Michaela sure is mean to literally everyone except her girlfriend and her family.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of implied that she has got caught up in some drama at some point prior to the beginning of the story. Like she implies that herself even, and it's just decided, fuck it, people aren't worth the effort. Despite that, though, she has found herself in a relationship with Marielle, who unfortunately is also the person Johnny was interested in.
Yeah, he's very, very suddenly forced to be dropped into this disillusioning and realization of how far he has to go before he understands love and before he starts making his way towards it. When Michaela comes home to let everybody know she likes girls, and then the very next day brings home the girl he's been in love with for what, 3 or 4 years.
I don't know. It's been a while though, and he's that's the introductory point for him. He has very abruptly got a lot to consider about the people in his life.
Yeah, the main thing that draws me like to this story so consistently, funny enough, isn't even I don't know, the stories are all good, but there's, a lot of little things happening that weave a narrative together, which I know sounds just like just what a story is, but I just mean there are so few big substantial events in this story, but it's very engaging despite because I almost feel like so much more emphasis is put on the web of connections and relationships and how every single thing every person does echoes out to hit everybody else and then connects and rubs against all the other stories going on at once. And that feels so unique and I really like it.
You could definitely do the like conspiracy red string on a corkboard thing with all the different like character relationships and story arcs for this. But it almost seems unfair to call it just like a web, like it's some sort of ball of yarn. It's a tapestry.
Tapestry is a better term, yeah, especially with how many threads there are.
Yeah, it is definitely a fantastic example, a case study of characters carrying the story because the plot itself is very basic and has very like little in the way of twists or complexities or anything like that. The plot itself is very simple, but the characters are so layered and well written, and the way they're portrayed is very nuanced. And we're going to get into a lot of that later on, so I'll just cut myself off there before, whilst I'm still only on the first character, but you were so very right in how you've described it.
Yeah, it's I'm like, man, there's not a lot going on besides these characters' internal struggles. And yet
There's so much going on.
there's so much and more importantly, there are so many and we're constantly seeing the ripples and echoes that I'm like, man, I don't care. I'm so engaged.
Yeah. Speaking of which, not because he's engaged, but because he's a what part of the ripples. Second character well, not the second we meet hilariously, because of course we actually meet Michaela and Marielle first. Next on my list is Gabriel, or Gabby, as he's primarily known, who
Oh,
is
Gabby.
he is introverted and snarky. He is in so many ways Johnny's mirror, but they've grown up together as best friends, borderline, like have a genuine sense of brotherhood, despite
He's
how
not just
different they are.
introverted.
Yeah.
Gabby is one of the few characters we encounter in modern media, I would say, who, without being psychotic or super mean or anything, is genuinely not asocial, but antisocial at the beginning of the story. Like, so often we hear people use antisocial when they mean asocial, but Gabby actually is. He is literally constantly like, what do you mean you want me to talk to anybody besides literally the people I grew up with and my family? No. I don't want to go do anything. I don't want to talk to anybody. Oh, great. You've got me talking to people now. I hate you. You better pay me or I'm leaving. Like,
He is routinely has to be bribed with food to engage with anyone other than like Johnny and Michaela and not Marielle, Martina socially.
and I like that at some point he actually brings up his own love of and addiction for food as a downside when like one of the last times we see it happen before it becomes way less consistent, he's literally sitting there going, why do I always do what people want for food? Oh,
I love Gabby. He's so much fun.
he's
But
great.
not without his own problems. Gabby he is sort of asexual gay, it seems like. At first, he has no interest in relationships or any outside because again, he is completely antisocial. Even though he has those feelings, he's like, nah, too much effort, absolutely not. And as a result of having this outside, very straight-laced, snarky personality, he largely serves, especially through the first arc, as a Johnny's voice of reason. Unfortunately for him, he does end up against his will having to explore a lot of his own thoughts on identity and romance as the story goes on, because he realizes he's developing feelings for Martina, who is a girl, and he's like, huh, this is weird, and I'm confused and scared.
He's like, what is happening right now? I've been gay literally my whole life. I've never liked a girl. I don't like girls.
And I, it's interesting because it's the way they I've never seen this happen in a story, right? Where one, they do this at all,
Yeah.
explore identity in this sort of way, and how confusing and surprising discovering parts of yourself can be, and how scary that can be. But also, it's not in any way whitewashing who Gabby is.
Yeah, especially because he's not coming from what we see in at least 99, if not 99.9% of all other examples of this, it's pretty much always happening to straight people because it's in most people's minds, it's straight people who still have room to open up and explore their opportunities. If they were, they wouldn't be straight. And it's like, well, turns out, even when your other things, whether that's gay or whatever, unless you're somehow already everything, I guess you there's still room you could open up and find more.
Yeah, and but the thing I really appreciate is it's not like it's being written as discovering, oh, never mind, girls are cool actually,
He likes a girl,
and
one,
it is confusing as shit for him.
and very frustrating
Yeah.
because although we're not getting into her more yet, I kind of feel like season 4 is going to be her bag. The girl he likes, one of our other four,
Martina.
God, I keep wanting to call her by the wrong name. Marielle and Martina are triggering my
Yeah.
dyslexia. But I keep wanting to combine their names together. But anyways, she seems to also be Ace Arrow, but even more than him, than Gabby, because Gabby is like, nah, can't be bothered, don't wanna. Who even cares about dating? All the guys I liked in the past are stupid anyways. Whereas she is like, ew, gross. Get that shit away from me, unless it's about other people.
Yeah, Martina is entirely uninterested in relationships and feels no attraction of any sort. She's completely arrow ace, but is also everyone's friend, being a very outgoing social butterfly who ends up being the driving force of a lot of social situations, especially. And this is probably one of the things that causes Gabby to develop these very confusing feelings, is that especially where he's concerned, she is constantly dragging him into like social things that he would otherwise avoid.
And that's funny enough what gets him to start liking her.
Yeah,
But, not only does he know what her deal is, he's more personally attached to it than most and literally feels like liking her is a betrayal. So not only is it confusing, but it's very upsetting to him because she already confided in him that part of why she likes hanging out with him and being his friend is because, as bad as this might sound, because he's gay, because so many of the guys she's become friends with in the past have ended up confessing to her and then not wanting to be her friend anymore when she rejects them.
it's stated outright that a huge part of like the core of their friendship is this, and that is one of the things that makes Gabby like he has guilt for this added on to his own confusion. I will say though, it is actually interestingly enough, that is mostly still part of like Gabby's arc, all that, and dealing with that. Her arc is more about how she has a tendency, she needs to learn to like respect boundaries in friendships and things like that, and not get involved in other
Yeah.
people's personal lives without their consent.
Marty is a meddler.
It's because she's a social butterfly, it's because she's friendly, it's because she wants to help, and it's and a little bit, especially when she starts getting involved in people's like romantic situations and things like that and trying to help there. It's an issue that is kind of compounded a bit by her own complete lack of understanding about romance or attraction or anything like that. Makes it even harder for her to understand why her meddling is a problem.
Yeah, it's like a mixture of so many good intentions, and she actually usually is quite good at helping people with their problems because of how outgoing and social she is and how much time she spends thinking about and observing and interacting with people. But she just doesn't know how to leave anything or anyone alone,
Yeah.
especially her sister, obviously.
Yeah, and that's where most of the drama in season 4 does come from. So finally, of course, we also have Marielle, who is at the start of the story introduced to us as both Michaela's girlfriend and Johnny's crush, because that's great for his self-esteem.
I love Mario so much. Who could have thought that the unreachable, unobtainable, perfect love of the first main character could end up not only being one of the main characters in her own right, but being such a delicate, sad little bunny who I want to cry for multiple times.
Well, has it because like when you first meet her,
We're
because
seeing her through Johnny's
yeah,
lens.
and you know the like the genre conventions and things like that, and because you're looking at it through Johnny's very biased lens, what you're like, oh, okay, she's the popular one there, right? No, actually,
Well, yeah, plus, unlike literally everyone else here, she starts out the story already having a romantic partner. But that's part of her thing is while everyone else has everything except a romantic partner, it's the only thing she has.
The popular girl, everyone's friend character is actually Martina.
Yeah.
Marielle has basically, other than Johnny and kind of by extension Martina and Gabby, has no other friends at all. It's just her relationship with Michaela that she's got, and that happened by like a 1 in a million chance, basically, that actually ended up happening.
And she's so used to not having friends that even if somebody is talking to her and hanging out on her as a regular basis, she can't conceive that they're friends until somebody says the word friend.
Yeah, because like Johnny, she has some confidence issues, but the difference is her confidence issues are more like full-blown extreme social anxiety.
Yeah, it's less that she doesn't believe in herself and more that she is shy to the point of locking up, freezing up, and being on the verge of a meltdown when she has to have any kind of social confrontation and constantly doubting not even herself so much as anyone else's perception of her or feelings towards her.
Yeah, she overthinks every aspect of every possible social relationship, familial, romantic, friend, whatever, and just to the point of being perpetually anytime she's talking to someone, basically other than Michaela or Johnny, and later the other members of the four, is basically on the verge of a meltdown.
Yeah, and even when she's talking to the people she can talk to,
She's
like
still
Johnny,
struggling.
she's ready for them to leave her and obviously not be interested in her at any moment.
And this is, of course, made worse for her by the fact that, unlike Michaela, she is very much still in the closet, whilst Michaela would prefer to be open.
Yeah, and not by choice either. It's just her coming out is literally her greatest struggle. It's all her problems and fears and anxieties rolled into one singular problem that's too in her face to ignore.
Yeah, and obviously she's also come from a environment as well, which maybe isn't like the most ideal for that sort of thing. Not I don't think anyone in her family is like openly super homophobic necessarily, but there's clearly enough there that it's a problem.
It's one of those things where I haven't seen anyone acting homophobic yet, especially her mom, who seems to be very sweet to her. But everyone in her family just generally seems to be, I I don't want to use the word aggressive, but very strongly heteronormative. And it's clear that it's been that way for a while because of how this is something that somebody who's not interested in guys might react to in general, but she has a particularly strong reaction whenever she's asked if she's got a boyfriend yet. Like a painful, no, I don't have a boyfriend.
It's a little bit of a spoiler, but so fair warning for anyone who wants to go into this blind. It won't hurt the story. Nothing we spoil at any point will hurt the story.
But if you want to be blind, disclaimer now.
Yeah, you know the drill. Go back, read it all, come back to us later. We're not going anywhere.
It's good, you should read it anyways.
Absolutely. Like I said, required reading for a lot of people. Um, we do see what the sort of, I guess, fallout when Marielle does eventually manage to come out to her mum.
I'm so mad I couldn't get to that before we got here. I was trying to speed read, but those damn ads.
The initial reaction is not good. Her mum becomes confused and angry. But what I really like about her mum is that after the shock has come like worn off, she starts immersing herself in LGBTQ plus media.
Yeah, she's a smart enough and caring enough person that even though she has that reaction, she then quickly goes, "Oh, but I don't know anything about it, do
Yeah,
I?"
she has a really nice heart to heart with Marielle where she's like, "Look, I don't understand this. I've I've come from a very heteronormative world. I've come from a very heteronormative like family. All of this is new to me. I don't understand it. I may never understand it, but I value you more than I value my own social norms that I have grown up with and have lived for my entire life." So I'm gonna do my best to support you regardless. And it was such a like sweet conversation. Like, and that there should be required reading for a lot of parents.
Yeah, for real. It's a really good example, and I'm glad to see it because like we didn't mention that the obviously the other big part of her struggle is actually piggybacking off of where we start because obviously one of the first things Johnny does in trying to move on is trying not to think about Marielle so much
But she is
before,
always there.
which is to get away from him. But not only is she always there, he's the only person she actually thought was her friend. And
Yeah.
then he's avoiding her and not talking to her. And she starts questioning if she's not if they're not friends anymore. And then of course she moves on past that and is like, were we ever friends? Was I the only one who thought we were friends? Was he just being nice to me because I looked pathetic and
I
sad?
It's been a while since I've read it, right? Like I do know that they do manage to get past all that again. I don't think anyone ever tells her why that was happening.
No, probably not, because the one part that does help do this, and it's very unfortunate that Marielle had to suffer the fallout of Johnny's recovery. But by the time they start talking again, he has recovered and like grown past it and become in a much better place and isn't a lost little puppy over her anymore, which is great. Because even though it sucks that she had to wait that long, wondering and thinking they weren't friends, it means he's in a healthy place and ready to be her friend by the time she finally talks to him again.
And needs that. Yeah. Of course, like I said, for a story called The Four of Them, the cast is actually a lot more expansive than you'd think. You've obviously got a bunch of other characters. Michaela, we've talked about a lot. You've kind of probably got a gist about her already anyway to this. She is so prominent that a lot of people, including me, originally thought that she was actually part of the main four until they counted and went, wait a minute.
Yeah, I did too.
She's even in like
There,
a lot of the like official art for like the on Webtoon and stuff like that. You're like the four of them. Why are there five characters on the cover art?
yeah, and it's inevitable because I mean, she's very close to three of the four. Like, despite
Yeah.
the fact that they've fought so much their whole lives, you can feel the bond between Johnny and Michaela really strongly, really early on, including once it's made clear that she doesn't talk to pretty much anyone else. And
She does
whenever
get
even
forcibly dragged into a friend group later, which is fun.
Yeah, and I just mean like, the first couple times we see her around other people, she's completely ignoring them. And then when she sees someone try to talk to her, even someone she has not interacted with before, she's almost immediately like, ew, why are you talking to me? Get away from me, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, like, I don't want to fucking talk to you. Who are you? Which is crazy because she's such a successful, like, dominating the ladder person that you would think she's also socializing, but like not at all. And that's there's more to say about that, but I'm only really bringing it up right now to sharpen how like her and Johnny are actually really close. They care about each other. Like one of the first moments that made me go, "Oh my God," in this story was how despite the fact that the story literally started by him telling us how we've always competed for everything and she always wins, he never once puts her dating the girl he was in love with in that context, even though it immediately preceded it.
I mean, he
He
does a
never once
teeny
goes,
bit, but he never holds it against her or like is
well, he goes,
antagonistic towards her about it.
well, he has to deal with the fact that they're dating, and he does, but like, it's never about the fact that Marielle is dating Michaela. It's always just about the fact that that she's dating someone, and
Yeah.
he has to reconcile with the fact that not only means she's not interested in him, but as far as he knows, she's probably not interested in guys at all. So it was never going to happen. And even when the first moment is brought, and he brings up for just a second that he's like having a breakdown, and like sometimes I wish they weren't together, but then I just feel bad for that because that's stupid, and I love them both.
God, I love how this is written. Like, Marielle is never just an object to be won.
No, not even to the prepubes or not even to the pubescent boy who loved her.
Also, we've got We did mention Leah briefly, who is Martina's sister, who you don't even officially learn that till quite deep into the story. After seeing them together all the time, becomes
That
a
was
lot
so
more
funny.
prominent in the final season.
I thought she was part of her little core three friend group, but it's like,
Yeah,
no, not only are they not friends, but that guy who's there is there because he's Leah's friend more than
yeah.
Martinez.
And you also have Josephina and Marcos, who, when they were first introduced, I thought, okay, who are these people? And then by like a chapter later, I was like, I love these guys.
You were looking at them going like, ugh, gross. Who are these redheads? Oh, they've got so
Yeah,
many freckles.
I mean, I don't have freckles as a side note, just putting that out there. But
No, that's okay. That's how they're connected to both of us. They have your red hair and they have my freckles because I'm a freckle boy.
they are actually so funny. I love their interactions both with each other and the principal cast and how they like end up weaving their way into it because they are only introduced to the story because they are both involved in a folk dancing thing that Martina drags Gabby to against his will and gets him involved with, and they end up becoming attached to the main cast of characters via that at first, where it starts turning out they actually have loads in common with them.
And they're also a big part of Gabby opening up because they're so aggressively friendly.
Yeah. They actually do get involved in into the story in other ways as well. I don't know how spoilery you want me to get.
You know, you know what I see Josephina as? I see Josephina as the flashback to when Korra in Legends of Korra was a kid and she breaks down the door, but you just replace the word avatar with your best friend, like just breaking down the wall. I'm your best friend now. You gotta deal with it.
That is basically how her friendship with Michaela does develop. Yeah.
Gabby too.
Yeah.
The
Also
only
true.
reason the only reason she doesn't stay on that and keep pushing it is because besides the fact that she does actually want to respect people's feelings, Gabby ends up becoming really close with Marcos anyway. So then she doesn't need to push because they basically share their entire life.
Marco's being just more chill enough and more respectful of people's boundaries enough compared to his sister is such a huge part of how he starts getting close with Gabby.
Yeah, especially because Josephina is motor mouth and Marcos is foot in mouth.
Yeah. So that's more or less covering the main group and also the quotation mark, so the secondary cast of four that sort of develops. I'd love to get into before we start talking about the like specifics of the writing as well. Brief, I would love to go over the structure as well a little bit.
Let's do it.
We've already talked about some of this, so I don't think we need to get super in depth about how the story is structured itself, because obviously we're going to want to rant about other things as well. But we'll see where it goes. So the way the story is done, as is often the case with webtoons, is it is released in seasons. And while every character has an ongoing arc through the entire story and develops consistently and constantly through the whole story, gradually getting a healthier attitudes towards and understanding of relationships, identities of all kinds, etc., etc. Each season is somewhat more centered on a different one of the main four. Season one, obviously, because we talked about it a fair bit, it deals with Johnny in the aftermath of learning about Michaela and Marielle, his desperation to be in a relationship, and his subsequent attempts at forcing that on himself and kind of unhealthily, just desperately chasing after the idea of that, and eventually coming to terms with having to be more okay and mature in and of himself before he pursues that. And that is fantastic for him. When he starts dealing with all that, he starts after some mishaps and some guilt along the way, becoming more okay with in and of himself, does wonders for his psyche in general. It's great.
Yeah, and he really goes forward in like every way. He he emotionally moves on, he grows, gets a more mature understanding of love and relationships, but he also just becomes more outgoing. He starts studying and improving his grades and really working hard at it.
He
He
finds
gets a new
hobbies.
haircut. Yeah, he finds hobbies. He gets a new haircut that really makes him feel fresh and also like without him realizing it really dials up how many people think he's hot. And he even makes a new circle of friends and starts hanging out with his dad more to go play soccer, which he's always hated, although it kind of just feels like he hated soccer. How do I put it? In a contrarian way, because his dad is obsessed, and also this story takes place in Argentina, so everybody just about is obsessed with football.
Yeah.
So he lives in the country that is well a
One of
country
many,
really,
but
but Argentina
it is
is
the
as
most
far as
popular
I know
sport
one
in
of
the
the big
world.
ones. Yeah, but as far as I know, Argentina is one of the big ones where it's like, no, soccer is the thing.
Absolutely. And it's great though, because not only does he expand his horizons like through that, develop a better relationship with his dad, it's also something he is able to bond with Josephina over a lot because she's also plays football.
Yeah, I love her little side thing of just seeing anyone else be interested in anyone else, especially Johnny, and being like, oh yeah, that guy, he's so hot. I should get me a piece of that right in front of him.
He's such a shit.
I love her.
Season two is we have all that going on with Johnny starts to form into the background as he starts getting healthier and healthier and doing better. Season two shifts to focus a bit more on Gabby, who, as we've discussed, despite having always identified as gay, realizes he's developed feelings for Martina of some sort and starts, worrying about how this is going to affect their relationship. Since it's the reason they got close to begin with, arguably, he starts wondering, like, what the hell does this mean for me? I've already gone through the effort of doing the whole coming out process and everything, and now I'm like, well, maybe not completely. Becomes a massive
Yeah.
source of anxiety for him, and basically follows the two sides of him just sort of coming to terms with it and going, you know what, this doesn't mean anything important. I am who I am. I'm me, and I'm just gonna just keep being me, and whatever comes from that, we'll deal with it as it happens.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things about that is the reveal we get along the way, partially thanks to Alex, who clearly pays a lot of attention and knows his brother better than anybody.
They are super close. I love their relationship. It's great.
They're so cute. And we get the revelation that, like, this isn't about, this isn't ultimately about liking a girl and that being upsetting. It isn't about being confused. I mean, it's about all of them, but the core issue isn't about being confused. Core issue isn't even about how concerned he is about hurting his relationship with Marty and how much she wouldn't want him to like her. It's about him hating change
Yep.
and having to accept that it doesn't matter how much he likes or hates change. It's gonna happen, and he can't deal with it better or make it happen less by running away from it and ignoring it.
And that is a huge part of why he is so antisocial.
Yeah,
That
he doesn't actually hate talking to people. He hates meeting people.
he doesn't like dealing with the change. He doesn't like dealing with all the complications. He wants his life to be simple and easy and neatly arranged, and that's just not what life is like.
Yeah, it like if he had a choice, things would like almost literally never change besides maybe getting a small job when he got a little older so that he could still afford snacks.
He starts feeling it's not just this, there's other things in there. Like, because Johnny is like getting mentally healthier and starting to broaden his own horizons, they start seeing a bit less of each other as well, which also starts confusing him and freaking him out. And they have a really nice conversation where Johnny's like, nah, man, we're like, we have been basically brothers for forever. Like, that's not changing just because I play football now. It's great. And he sorts things out with Martina in the end, obviously as well. And he gets over it eventually as well. Even before that, he's has a discussion with her where he's like, "Look, I know you don't want this. I also don't particularly want this, but it's there, and if I don't mention it, it's gonna eat away at me and cause problems for us down the line. Now I've mentioned this, moving along, and it's great."
Yeah, no, exactly. Like I just needed you to know. I needed to not hide it from you because I feel like that would be a bigger trail, that a bigger portrayal than the feelings themselves could ever be. And now you know, you probably don't want to talk about it. I sure as hell don't want to talk about it. And you know what? I don't want to date you anyways.
And it's great for them, to be honest. It's good for Martina because she gets to experience a dude who becomes interested and doesn't bugger off and abandon her because of it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's great because her problem ultimately wasn't anybody being interested in her. It was losing friends over it.
Exactly. Anyway, speaking about the problems in relationships, season three, uh,
Season 3.
potentially the most heart-wrenching of all of them. It follows Marielle and Michaela as Marielle struggles to deal with all of that social anxiety and fear we talked about, as well as the concerns about that and coming out to her family. All the while, Michaela herself is also struggling with having a closeted partner because it is eating away at her that they have to keep hidden. And it's hurting her self-esteem that anytime anyone comes close to maybe discovering them, Marielle like distances herself immediately and artificially creates this distance. And it's not going well for them in oh so many ways.
Yeah, feeling any sort of rejection, however small, from your partner doesn't feel good to anybody, but Michaela is an especially like outgoing and strong-willed, but also closed closed off person. And Marielle is pretty much the only person she has in her life, especially because as much as she loves Johnny, she's also not like attached to him to the point of like they spend they spend the time together that they're gonna spend together no matter what, and they don't actually really try to hang out all that much. So she doesn't have a whole lot going on besides Marielle, especially with her like just hating people in general half of the time. So it's it's like a little crack in her heart every single time someone looks in their direction and Marielle yanks her hand out of hers or doesn't feel comfortable kissing her outside of the house. And even though she knows why and she's trying her best to be supportive of it, that doesn't make it hurt less.
Michaela, for her own sake, and she says eventually puts down the ultimatum of basically, you've got to tell your parents at least about this because this is killing me. But unfortunately, that I put a timer on it, but unfortunately for Marielle, that only like triples the anxiety.
Although also Marielle does make the mature decision of her own, because the story makes it clear, even though I didn't watch it happen, that she's the one who decided they should go on a break for a little while because she's like, "You're right. This isn't fair to you. I'm not treating you right. Please give me some time to just try to focus on getting myself to finally do it. I want to come out. I want to get over this hurdle."
They are a really good example of a relationship that falls apart. And it has, and obviously it does have the expected emotional fallout from that. And they have a lot of work to recover that. Not necessarily the relationship, but their friendship with each other. They struggle at first, but they do deal with it in a healthy way. And Marielle eventually goes through a very similar arc to what Johnny does at first, and he is even almost like a bit of a guide for that in some ways, in that she starts dealing with all of her own stuff before she even considers anything more than that again. And, for her part, Michaela is happy for her for that, and is also forced to start largely because Josephine gives her no choice, much like Martina does for Gabby, developing an actual healthy social circle again.
Yeah, no, like as sweet as Marielle and Michaela's relationship is, it's also very, very clearly that they were both kind of hiding from the world in each other.
Yeah, they were very much dependent crutches in various ways.
Yeah, because, and it's funny because they both come from almost the same place, but it's like Marielle can't open herself up to people and let things go forward, and Michaela won't. And it sucks because their relationship is cute and their love is real, but also like them being together is the ultimate stopgap that prevented them from moving forward in those other healthy directions.
And it's tragic that that is the case, but it's also true to life in so many ways. Like sometimes, even if you are happy with someone, even if you are like having a positive experience, it doesn't mean it is healthy.
No, and even sometimes if the relationship itself is healthy, it could be possible that your motivations for it or a way that you make use of the relationship aren't anything, even when it's coming from a good place. can still go to a bad place and it can still hurt you. And it's so easy for us to throw ourselves into and become dependent on relationships, especially romantic ones, that it's that much more in danger of becoming a trap for you if you can't see it.
Yeah. And speaking of dependency, season 4
I assume Marty.
is obviously Martina's season. With everything else, of course, does continue still, like we said, but this is sort of Martina's focus season. And I won't go too much into it exactly because it's the only one that isn't really focused on the main on the like the focus character's romantic situation because she's of course our ace and has none of that. It is all about her boundary issues and tendency to get involved in other people's friendships and relationships, which ends up causing a lot of tension with her sister Leah, who becomes interested in Johnny.
And apparently has been for a while. We just weren't seeing it at first because she didn't matter back then.
Yeah, and Martina keeps like going out of her way to try and set that up, especially because Josephina also becomes interested in Johnny, and they start like starting to develop a thing, which is making Martina panic because she wants her sister to be happy. And the entire time, Leah is basically very explicitly saying, "I would rather lose out and be unhappy about this than have that only like some false thing happen because you've engineered it." And
Yeah, like
Martinez
I
just
would
does not
literally rather have it
understand.
not happen at all than get it with your help.
Yeah. And the whole arc is basically just Martina just does not understand that and has to like learn boundaries.
It's so hard for her to comprehend, especially because I bet there have been plenty of times where there were much smaller occasions she wanted to help Leah and Leah was like, "No, get away from me." Where what she's
Oh, it's
feeling, at
constant.
least well, what I mean is, I'm sure at least in some of those other situations, it was real and it was like, oh, Leah's being silly or petty. Why doesn't she just accept help? Who cares? But this is an entirely different matter where all that matters about it are Leah's feelings and whether she does want help or not. And it's one of those things where it's like full stop the second you get a no, that's it.
So it's weirdly about consent.
Yeah, it's about consent, but like help consent. But ultimately consent is consent, and this may sound silly because it is contextual. Like in the broadest sense, there are times in life for important things where people need to be pushed into something that's good for them or pulled out of something that's bad for them, and they need an intervention from someone else in their life. But things like whether you want to be with someone or be in a relationship or pursue someone are not one of them. That's something that's entirely and utterly about you and your feelings, and nobody else has a right to intrude on it, even a single inch beyond what you ask of them.
Exactly, which I think is a perfect jumping up point to start talking about a little bit more of the details as we get into the sort of tail end of our time. The writing in this story, I said at the beginning as well, genuinely I think is should basically be required reading for any like young people who are just starting to get into that sort of area of exploring relationships with other people and who they are as themselves, their own personal identities and things like that. I think a lot of people who are older, even getting into our age bracket and beyond, could also probably do from going through and reading this either as a healing experience or as a method of self-education because the writing is dealing with some very mature subject matter, not in the sense of like romance is mature subject matter, ooh, R plus, or whatever the American rating system would call it. No, I mean it is mature in how it is handling something that is a part of everyone's lives, whether they want it to be or not. Like even Martina, who is not herself interested in any of that sort of stuff, is surrounded by it and affected by it because everyone else around her is interested in these things. And I really appreciate how this story handles the nuances of all of this, and it doesn't break it down into the typical genre staples and tropes and things like that. We talked like in our last episode with Marv, we talked a lot about how all of us in our own varying experiences or different ways started out kind of thinking, I'm not really that interested in romantic stories, and then later on went, oh, you know what? No, I just hate bad writing. And this is the
Yeah.
counterpoint to that because it is so well written.
And one of my favorite things about it is, for one thing, on the whole gossip thing, I love that Marty is aromantic, but she's also a romantic because she
Yes.
actually loves love and relationships. She just doesn't have feelings about all of that herself. She loves hearing about what's going on with other people and seeing other people find love and everything. She just doesn't want it for herself. But anyways, yeah, no, I love it because the funny thing is, there's always layers to these connections and things with strong writing, and I love that in the core, at the base sense, this story has something in common with these social relationships and love and connections between people, and the struggles we go through in understanding them. It has something in common with them that helps highlight it even more in the story, and that's that much like all those relationships, the writing in this is, and the characters and everything are simultaneously very unique and one of a kind, and yet also totally normal. Something something I like that we're able and willing to talk about and acknowledge that I think not nearly enough people with high reading comprehension, a good understanding of narrative and writing and everything are willing to praise and see as a good thing is how simply understandable and down to earth this story is, despite the complexities of these people and what is happening to them. It simultaneously is completely unique and also couldn't be more normal.
Yeah, that's the thing. The realism of the characters and their relationships and how those things are portrayed compared to how they are typically portrayed in media, the contrast is stark. One of the things we talked about in our previous recording was how a lot of romance focused media teaches, especially everyone, but especially young people, teaches these really unrealistic ideas and standards and expectations of what these things are. Even the ones that allegedly have a more open-minded and liberal mindset and quotation marks realistic exploration. This is what it actually looks like. You know what I mean? This is so much more true to life than any of that other stuff.
Yeah, the four of them takes a lot of issues that so many other stories, especially those geared towards young people, take and go. You remember, always be ready to support your friends, or always be ready to help out, or always be ready to take no for an answer and listen to somebody. And even though every time those other stories have something like that, you have to acknowledge, well, but not always, though. The four of them literally says, well, hold on, let's sit down and talk about this.
Yeah.
It gets you to those moments and then goes, no, there's a lot of nuance here. And I don't mean that the story is nuanced, which it is. I mean the story is telling you there is nuance you need to read into and acknowledge and be aware of.
Yeah. Relationships and identities of all kinds are fucking messy and complicated and difficult to understand at the best of times, but especially when it's all new to you. And this story does such an amazing job of showing you the truth of that, not the sanitized TV version, romance book version, or whatever, but the reality of that, of how complicated that it is to experience and understand for everybody, and how no one has a clue what they're doing, really. No one. It is always an ongoing process to understand everyone around you and also yourself. And then when you start making units of people like a relationship is, when you have to understand yourself and somewhere else to a deeper level, just makes it even more complicated. It really embraces that it is an ongoing, messy process. Not in a way that the writing is messy, obviously. The writing is actually incredibly tight.
I I can't believe this story that has nothing to do with monuments and also isn't in America has led to me having a thought about how the Statue of Liberty can be a decent metaphor for life. It's it's not perfectly maintained and shiny and buffed for everybody to see, but neither is it dramatic, explosive, or like grimed up and disgusting for the sake of drama or shock value. It just is. It's just there. You're seeing the genuine, real wear and tear and blemishes of it, much like how, even though the Statue of Liberty is our national monument and it's the thing, it's the American thing, that was originally a giant piece of copper that is now green and oxidized all over. You know, like when you think of a national monument, you think of it being perfectly maintained and preserved. But here is one that, even though it's such a big deal, is literally impossible to have ever preserved.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like one of the things you probably don't think about, right? But one of the best examples of that in the story is that there is no antagonist. There is no shortage of both intra and interpersonal conflict, but at no point in this story, even when things get a little tense or uncomfortable between some of the characters, there is never an antagonist.
There's not even an inch of malice. There
Yeah,
is nobody in this story who at any point is out to or wants to hurt anyone else.
and that is one of the things that I absolutely love about it because it's one of those things that a lot of media, when dealing with romance, portrays that like there is a right answer and a wrong answer. One of these people is the antagonist who is trying to mess up this relationship or cause or there's this drama or you have to make this choice because this is the good choice and the bad choice. And it's just so much more realistic because in reality, love doesn't have antagonists. Obviously, that doesn't mean that everyone is the right choice. Some people are, in fact, assholes or abusers or otherwise unhealthy for you. But the cliche of like the framing of romantic rivals that you see in most romantic media and things like that, it's not true to life. And you can
Yeah.
tell that the writing with the four of them is because it is completely absent from it.
Yeah, there's not always a bad guy. There's not always an antagonist. There's not even always an enemy or a rival. And it's refreshing to see a story doing that, not just because it's unique, because we have stories out there now with no antagonists and no bad guys, but a lot of them are also super feel good, really nice. Problems are always solved neat and tidy, and people don't have that many problems. And what I like here is we're not just being shown that there's not always a bad guy, but that there doesn't need to be a bad guy for people to get hurt and to struggle. Life is struggle, and there's a lot of pain to be found anyways. You don't you don't need an enemy to make that happen, and also finding or making up an enemy isn't a way to deal with it better or get through it.
Yeah, exactly. The four of them is just an absolute masterclass in how to healthily explore themes of identity and romance, both in fiction and in reality. And I love that about it.
I'm really glad I started reading it.
With that, though, I think we can end this episode there. If genuinely highly if you're a teacher dealing with like students in this age bracket, push this onto them. Shout it from the rooftops that they should read this. Use it in your lessons. It is that good
Yeah,
about these things.
we got to give it to Axel, even though I'm sure she understands most of these problems well enough already. I bet she'd like it.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I mean that we can leave it there, I think. If you are listening to this over on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever else it is showing up, you could also find these episodes on my website, radfordwrites.com. I also share my assorted writings there, both short stories, poetry, my books, all that good stuff, my serialized stories in epilogue, all of that. I also post sort of blogs and articles and things like that if you like hearing me rant about writing in a more technical sense, a lot of that there. And plenty more collaborations with John there as well. John, of course, you can find streaming on YouTube and Twitch as Cephia, Sephear. He's good. You should go and enjoy his content there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, bye.